Welcome to section 11.13, part 2. This is the 116th session of the CISSP exam prep series. This part picks up the wireless story where the last one paused, moving into stronger protections and other radio technologies. In this session, we'll widen the wireless picture. We'll answer several questions. What makes the newest protected access stronger? How does port-based authentication plug into Wi-Fi? Which extra protocols and features help or hurt security? How do you actually harden a deployment? And how do the other radio technologies around us work, from Bluetooth to the tiny tags in your badge? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because Wi-Fi is only one radio your organization emits. Picture a retail store humming with staff tablets on Wi-Fi, wireless payment terminals, Bluetooth headsets, and access badges tapping doors all day. Every one of those signals is a possible way in. Knowing how each technology authenticates and where each one leaks is how you lock the whole radio environment, not just the obvious network. What makes the newest protected access stronger? It hardens the weakest link, the password exchange. The enterprise flavor steps up to a heavier encryption key, while the personal flavor keeps a strong modern cipher. The real leap is a new handshake that no longer sends your password across the air to prove it. Instead, it runs a zero-knowledge exchange, so both sides confirm they know the secret without ever transmitting it. It also shields management frames, giving those housekeeping messages confidentiality, integrity, and origin checks. Think of proving, a bank PIN by answering a challenge rather than shouting the number across the lobby. How does port-based authentication plug into Wi-Fi? Through a handoff standard that blocks a client from touching resources until it authenticates. Think of it as an authentication proxy sitting at the door. It does not check credentials itself. Instead, it hands the request off to your existing identity infrastructure, things like a central authentication server, certificates, smart cards, or tokens. Underneath sits a flexible framework that is not one authentication method, but a container for many. That container lets new authentication technologies drop into wireless and point-to-point links without reinventing the wheel. It is the plumbing that lets enterprise Wi-Fi lean on the identity systems you already run. Which extra authentication protocols should you know? Couple of wrappers around that flexible framework. One is a vendor-specific option built to patch an early weakness before the strong standard arrived. It was later shown to be crackable with a dedicated tool, so avoid it, and if you must use it, demand a long, complex password. A better choice wraps the authentication exchange inside an encrypted tunnel. Since the underlying framework was designed for already protected channels and often travels in the clear, tunneling it adds the confidentiality it lacks. Picture sending a sensitive form through a sealed courier pouch instead of an open interoffice envelope. Why is Wi-Fi protected setup a liability? Because convenience opened a hole. This feature was meant to make adding a new device painless, auto-connecting and authenticating the first client after you press a button or enter a short code. The trouble is that code, it splits into two halves that an attacker can guess one segment at a time, with the base station confirming each half. That design lets a brute force attack succeed in hours, dropping an intruder onto your network. It is on by default on most access points, so disabling it should be a standard step before deployment. If a device will not let you turn it off, update the firmware or replace the unit. Can filtering by hardware address keep intruders out? Not reliably. A hardware address filter is a list of approved device identifiers, and the access point blocks anything not on it. It sounds tidy, but it only fits small, static environments, and even there it leaks. The frame header that carries those addresses stays readable even under strong encryption, so an attacker can sniff an approved address and spoof it. On top of that, many modern phones rotate their address at random, so treat this as a mild speed bump, never as a real gate. How much does antenna choice and placement matter? More than people expect. The common straight antenna radiates in every direction, which suits a base station sitting in the middle of a space. Directional types instead focus their energy one way, useful for reaching a distant point or a specific zone. For good coverage, center your equipment, avoid solid obstructions, steer clear of reflective metal surfaces, and keep away from electrical noise. If signal is still poor after a survey, nudge the power level in small steps and note the original setting, since sometimes lowering power actually improves things. Think of aiming a flashlight versus lighting a whole room. What does a captive portal add? A gatekeeping web page. When a new client connects, the portal redirects it to a page before letting any traffic through. That page might demand a login, an access code, or payment, and it often forces the user to accept an acceptable use policy first. You have met these at hotels, airports, and cafes, but they work on wired connections too. The point is simple. Anywhere an owner wants to limit access to paying, agreeing, or known users, this page becomes the checkpoint. Think of a coat check you must clear before entering the venue. So what does a solid Wi-Fi deployment look like in order? It stacks several habits together. Start by updating firmware and replacing the default administrator password with something long and unique. Turn on modern, protected access encryption and pick an authentication mode that fits your scale. Change the network name off the vendor default and treat the wireless side as untrusted, separating it from the wired network with a firewall. Layer on wireless intrusion detection and prevention. Consider requiring a VPN across the link, add a captive portal, and log every wireless event. No single step is magic. The strength is in the stack. How do wireless signals actually share the limited airwaves? Through spectrum techniques that let many transmissions coexist. Radio communication rides waves measured by frequency, and there is only so much usable spectrum to go around. Spread spectrum splits a message across several frequencies at once, sending pieces in parallel. Some methods hop across frequencies, one at a time. Others transmit on many simultaneously with special coding to survive interference, and still others pack signals tightly so they do not clash. Others let multiple users share one band by slicing it into time slots or by tagging each user with a unique code. Picture a crowded room where people avoid talking over each other by taking turns, whispering on different pitches, or each speaking a private language. What should you know about Bluetooth and its relatives? That it is convenient and usually unencrypted. Bluetooth links paired devices over short distances on a common band. And by default, most implementations send data in the clear, often relying on trivial pairing codes. A low-energy variant sips power for wearables, sensors, and medical gear while keeping similar range. And a related low-power standard for smart devices does encrypt its traffic. Convenience aside, Bluetooth invites a family of attacks. Attackers can capture its packets, flood a device offline, push unwanted messages, quietly steal data, or even seize remote control and turn on a microphone. The best defense is blunt. Minimize its use, especially in public, and switch it off when you are not actively using it. How do the tiny tags in badges and phones work? Through two related, short-range technologies. The first can be powered from a distance by a reader's magnetic field, letting it transmit a stored code without a battery, which makes it great for inventory, but also a privacy concern, since anyone with a reader could note your tag as you pass. The second is a close cousin that only works within a few centimeters, so you tap or touch devices together to trigger it. That tight range is a feature, powering contactless payments and quick device pairing while limiting who can reach it. But even it faces eavesdropping, tampering, and replay, so leave it disabled until you actually need it. So let's bring it together. The newest protected access strengthens the handshake and shields management frames, and port-based authentication hands Wi-Fi off to your existing identity systems through a flexible framework. Know the tunneling protocol that adds encryption, and disable the setup feature and hardware address filtering that offer false comfort. Plan antennas, use captive portals, and follow the layered deployment checklist. Beyond Wi-Fi, understand how spectrum is shared, why Bluetooth needs restraint, and how short-range tags trade range for both convenience and exposure. In the final part, we turn to the attacks that target wireless directly. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on rucloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.